Okay, so when we're dealing with complex numbers, they simplify as normal expressions do with variables, meaning we combine our like terms as we normally would with x's, y's, so forth. So for here, when we're subtracting these two numbers, we're combining any real parts, so any normal numbers, and we're combining any imaginary parts, so the i's. The main thing we just have to be careful with, just like normal addition subtraction, is when we have negatives, we have to make sure that distributes to the whole piece. So really the parentheses on this first part don't matter. This is just a 3 plus 2i. But then we're going to subtract 1, and then subtract a negative 6i means that'll turn into plus 6i. So now we just combine our like terms as we usually do. So we have 3 and minus 1 are the same type of term. They're both the real number, which makes it 2, and then we have a plus 2i and a plus 6i. So those just go together to become plus 8i. So adding, subtracting simplifies just like a normal polynomial would. The second example here, the fourth I plus 3 minus 6 plus I minus 1. Again, you're just looking for your like terms. So let's look at our real parts first, our non-variables. We have a 3 minus 6 minus 1. So 3 minus 6 is negative 3 minus another 1 would be negative 4. Let's work left to right. And now for our imaginary parts, we have the 4i plus I. So that would be plus 1 more I. So that turns into plus 5i. And that would be that one simplified. So again, just combine your like terms as normal. Now the word that we add a little something new to is when we multiply. It multiplies out like normal. There's just an extra simplification towards the end. So we still distribute as we normally would. So if we do 5i times 3, that gives us 15i. And now 5i times negative 2i, so 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. And then I times I makes I squared. So now this is the part that's a little new. If you remember, back when we defined what I was, so if I is the square root of negative 1, well, then I squared equals the square root of negative 1 squared. Well, when you square a square root, those cancel out. So I squared is just equal to negative 1. Remember, that's where we started with all this to begin with. So anytime you end up with an I squared, you can actually simplify this. We can plug a negative 1 into that problem. So this turns into 15i minus 10 times negative 1. Well, negative 10 times negative 1, just that turns that into a positive 10. So we get 15i plus 10. And if you want it in that a plus bi form, really not a big deal, but you could switch the order to write 10 plus 15i. Same thing, they both work, they're both correct. So when you end up with an I squared, you have to sub it out for negative 1. Again, only when it's the I with the square on it. Okay, last one. Now we have two sets of parentheses, still distributing, but we can also use our boxes to help us out with this. So we have 5 plus 3i. Remember, this just helps us organize it all. 2 and negative 3i. And now we can do one piece at a time. It just makes sure we don't forget anything. You also, if you guys are used to doing distributive rainbow method, you're just making sure everything distributes to every piece. You will get the same answer no matter which way you write it out. So 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 3i is 6i. 5 times negative 3i would be negative 15i. 3i times negative 3i gives me negative 9i squared. So notice there's where my I squared is coming back in. We will have to deal with that in a second. So first I'm just going to pull everything out of that box. So we have 10 plus 6i minus 15i minus 9i squared. Let's go ahead and combine some like terms here. We have 6i and minus 15i. Notice the I squared cannot be combined with that. It has the square on it, so it is not considered a like term. So 10 stays the same. Negative 9i squared is still there, but 6i minus 15i gives us minus, give me a quick second, 6 plus 9i. I believe. If I made a mistake there, Bear with me with my mental math. Okay, now the last part here is our I squared. I squared is equal to -1. So we're going to sub that out. So we have 10 minus 9i minus 9 times -1. All that does is switch the sign. So it turns into 10 minus 9i plus 9. So when I now can combine these like terms, because now that 9 is just a normal number, we can do 10 plus 9, which gives us 19. So 19 minus 9i. So it multiplies like normal. We just have an extra step of simplifying at the end when we have that I squared there.